So you've been with us a couple of years now, and you visited more than one time with me, many times with me and the team, and your vision or your understanding of what we have called the print imaging business, but now we call it the imaging channel, which has now become the workplace services provider. So watching what everybody's doing, what's the best thing you can say to them about the benefits of what those data centers will ultimately deliver for them in the way of benefit?
Yeah.
And when?
So it's such a subjective thing, right? People are worried about AI and they're worried about what's going to happen in the future. And what I say is, I look at AI as the only way to open up the middle class, because there's going to be a lot of white collar jobs that are irrelevant, right? There's certain things that AI can solve for and figure out on its own, which means that we're going to have to shift back into tradesman type crafts, skilled type labor, and it's going to allow people to really become subject matter experts. The way that really, before educational institutions became a really big business, we had and functioned on an apprenticeship type of program that went into a journeyman type of program that went into a master type of program. And the beauty about that is everyone can reinvent themselves within a craft. I think that, when you ask the kind of question that he did in the combination of what you did, you're talking about philosophy of technology, and what I talk about are patterns, right? Like I'm a Adobe sailor. I came from a submarine background where everything I did was to analyze and interpret a trend. What was happening in that submarine was critical because it allowed me to understand how I can hedge and handicap risk against me or the crew. So for everything I do, I look at patterns, and one of the things that I try to iterate to all of you on my speech was everything is Goldilocks. Everything is too hot, and then it's too cold before it's just right. And I ask you, what phase of those 3 chapters are we in right now for AI? Right? I do think that there will be a point in time which you see, we're 13 days into the year right now. I saw $150 billion worth of announcements just into AI in the first 13 days of this year, and we're just getting started. Right, so there's been a huge push into it, but everything's too hot, too cold before it's just right. And there is a lot of things that are shifting. Quantum is it's an incredibly powerful tool, but it is enough so to which it forced our government to shift a lot of the things that we do for a nuclear deterrence factor back into an analog model because it's the only way that we couldn't be hacked. Right, so you will see technology introduced to us in a way at first where I remember when people were walking down the road with Google Glass on. And then that shit went away, right? Because it was an over-rotation, and the soup really wasn't done cooking on what AI's capabilities and limitations were. Someone was mentioning something that I had said last year, which was, for every time that you use the ChatGPT question, it's the equivalency of charging your phone from 0 to 160 times, but it generates so much heat that the only way to reject that heat is there's only so many different mechanical permutations, and what we're doing now is we're using water or cold plate liquid to chip or some sort of dielectric glycol immersion chemical. Yep, it's because we can't reject heat fast enough. If I get done running and I'm hot and I'm standing there and someone's fanning me, it's one thing. If someone's spraying me with water, that's another. If I jump in a pool, I'm cold, right? So there's certain things that are coming, and to get to a part of your question is, a lot will still remain the same. There's going to be a lot of things in which the juice will not be worth the squeeze in AI. We just simply don't have enough energy to support all the applications in which companies or individual contributors to society want to use AI for. So we're going to have to begin to allocate where those resources are partitioned, because they will take a place and have an impact on national security and defense. So that means that a lot of people that are working in jobs that are white collar, that are not evolving, they will be left out. I mean, there were people that were still rearranging the furniture for 2.5 hours on the Titanic as it was sinking. So there are people that are going to be outdated, but everything that you do is it's the equivalency of an iteration of life. I'm swinging from one rope to the next, which means that you have the ability, because of emerging technology, to re-educate and reposition yourself in a market in which you can be significant again. So I answer those questions with, listen, don't feel like AI is going to take all your jobs. If anything, AI is going to create a greater value for some of your jobs, because the ability for you to do things that AI can't is going to drive the value of you in the middle class back up. When I say you, I mean us. The middle class is going to be those people that are going to be literally fabricating and creating things to support the technologies that this man wants to use, or this man wants to use. Those things are all done, but AI can't build those. They can do the algorithms for those, but the ability to go in and build and put things together, just like AI couldn't put those chairs on the stage, it still required a human. So there's going to be more jobs that are going to be created. I would tell you that, if you have kids and if you have kids in high school, raise your hands. Yeah, the jobs that they'll have in 5 years from now haven't been invented yet. That's a fact, right? Which is why we have to ask ourselves, do we continue to feed a machine, which, like I said, I got 2 kids in 2 different SEC schools and 1 at the Citadel. So I'm telling you that it's a waste of my money, but I'm paying them there to go learn the life lessons that I couldn't find otherwise if they were in the military, right? But they're not really learning things in college that are going to apply to the workforce that is required, that's going to have a massive demand for us in a few years from now. Only we have the ability to reiterate and reinvent ourselves to that level because we've been immersed in this through, if you're a Gen Xer, you were born and raised without the Internet of Things, without the World Wide Web, without smartphones, without mobile phones. Now you have your kids that they haven't lived in a world without it, right? So there's a huge dichotomy between us, but we have to crawl, walk, run to get there. I don't think AI, I think that AI will not pencil in certain aspects or applications of technology, and there'll be a regression of that, and we will start using AI and the engine of AI to service things that have a greater impact on humanity. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I'd like to kind of draft behind it, all of them actually, but especially the last one. Think about that. The jobs haven't been invented for your kids in school. Now, I want to come back a little full circle. And I would like to honor all of them because in our industry, I don't recall ever having this type of brain power on a stage to talk about these kinds of things. So I really encourage you to be thinking. Remember what I told you earlier this morning? Be curious. If you leave this room and you aren't doing your research, you hurt yourself. So listen to what they're saying. I want to come back a little bit. I love, this is personal opinion, so I didn't pull this out of Google or anything. But with all the experiences that we've had, we've got software developers, we've got OEMs, we've got manufacturers, we've got every conceivable facet of our business, our industry right here in this room. And I absolutely go ballistic sometimes when one of us gets in front of a guy like John Case or Sean or Kirk, but especially in this case specifically for John, and they show you something that's today,
Yep.
that will dramatically improve your business. And I listen to the brilliant dialogue and the logical discussion, and I hear, it's not ready for prime time. I'd like to know what research center you went to. I'd like to know what science school you went to. I'd like to know what ERP school you went to. I'd like to know what kind of business process school you went to. That someone who I consider myself a level up of stupid. And only because my daughter tells me that. But when someone who is stupid, quote unquote, and I'm being dramatic, and their first reaction is, it was a great pitch, John. Come back when it's prime time. And in the meantime, add a little color for you. And this again, personal bias, I'll take it to the bank, swear to God, only my opinion. 90% market share is on a system that's 35 years old. And you're gonna tell him he's not ready for prime time. And that to me is the absolute collision between our industry getting its shit together, start to do real studying and research, and actually take action. And if you can't get past that step, where's that leave them? Hopefully you'll be out of business by then and you won't have to worry about it. But I want to be dramatic at that point. You cannot do IT services. You can't do succession planning. You can't do M&S. You can't do all these adjacent market things. We talked about the security company yesterday, right? A beautiful, robust technology. You won't be able to bill it. You can own 40% market share, and you're going to have 14 people in your back room going, who's got the Excel spreadsheet? That works. So I'm being very dramatic here, but we are at a dramatic point. 2025 is going to change this world. You're changing it. When you see what Sean's doing tomorrow, I mean, I saw it. Like I said, I'm a level stupid, but even I went, oh. I asked her, what did he mean? He was a smart guy. Because Hero and I were sitting there going, holy cow. So I don't want to be overly dramatic for you guys, but this is our industry. This is the nature of our industry. Billions and billions of dollars of revenue and profit are generated here. And we're at the proverbial wall. Make a call, make a choice. Maybe the choice is, I like it where I am and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and I don't want any of this stuff in my life because, I'm going to go to the Caribbean in a year. And that's great. But be honest with your decision-making process and your research. Be honest with what you think you need. I'm listening to, where is it, Frank, Mike Lepper, the Impact team. I heard what you said. $1 billion when? Next 10 years. $1 billion next 10 years. You're not going to sit back and not make investments. It's just not the way it works. So I hope you're listening to these guys because this is our reality. So sorry to pontificate a little bit. So questions for them, we got a little bit of time left.
Mike, can I say something more?
Please.
So if you talk about enterprise resource planning tools, what's interesting is when we started building our quantum ledger, the first things we thought of, material resource planning and enterprise resource planning.
Sure.
Very first things we thought of.
Utilization of scarce resources.
That
is the core.
That's the core. And so the good news is, if you're sitting out there, and I'm going to show you, we took an old company called Blockbuster and turned it into a quantum company. And I'll show it tomorrow. It's really crazy to watch. But what I would tell you is if you don't have systems in place like an MRP system or ERP system, when quantum computing comes, because what I'm going to show you tomorrow is talking to an ERP and when I started having with these investors, like, Sean, you spend all this money, you're building the next generation, and you're licensing MRP and ERP technologies. I'm like, yeah, I got to have a foundation. And it's because once you get into quantum computing, when you can literally take that intelligence of 30, 40 years of how to organize things. Granted, they're semantically defined by some engineer, but it just gives you a launch point. So, because now all of a sudden you can take, and I'll show it tomorrow, you can literally talk to Blockbuster in a quantum ledger and say, can you tell me the best-selling movie on a Tuesday that started with the letter R? And which should be my best, and who should be my best customer? So if you don't have the foundations to begin asking that question, material resource planning, and material resource planning in the quantum era is going to be so important compared to where it is now. And then enterprise resource planning, you don't have the ability to have a strong baseline to move up. So I thought I'd give you a plug because the very first thing that I did was built on an ERP. I'm done here.
He's right. All right, I saw a question back there. Yes, Andy.
I have a question about the power. So if we're hitting a point where we're using more and more and we're not investing the way other countries are, we're not investing the way other countries are with the power at the moment, are we looking at a point where we start running out and the computing power that we do have starts getting distributed to maybe companies that have the leverage to make sure they get it, which I think would leave a lot of companies in this room out. You get to a point where, let's say, I know when I put something big into ChatGPT, it takes a few days, right? And from what you're saying, it's going to be instant.
It's going to be instant, but here's the good news.
Well, the question I have is, is it going to be instant for big companies first, and then for me later? How are they setting it up to make sure everybody is getting their even distribution and everybody has the same power and the same rights?
That's not for you.
So I'll give my opinion first because I'm passionate about this. You guys haven't figured it out yet. Having been an entrepreneur, and I'm the last guy to be an entrepreneur. I thought I was gonna be a career guy, hopefully make general officer someday, and then, you know, go work for Lockheed Martin or something, right? So I'm an accidental technologist, I didn't expect to be here. But what I love more than anything else in the global economy is the mid-market. It's an $11.6 trillion industry, I mean, opportunity. So for me, I go where the money's at. So what I think you need to look at as you move forward is, if I had my way, and we're spending a lot of money on it right now, is energy is the problem, as he said. I'm not a former nuke guy, I'm a sub guy, I'm not a big fan, kind of a tree hugger, so I'm not a big fan. I like walking out in the woods.
I'm a tree hugger too, just to make it clear.
I just don't want nuclear power anywhere near me. It's just who I am.
But that's a mistake.
Yeah. But so we built a hydrogen battery, a graphene battery that can put 2.5 megawatts, and you can use solar and wind and generate it. So
Way less efficient.
I'm a big fan.
I like him, he's an army guy, we're gonna have to do this all day.
You know what's interesting is normally Army and Navy guys, you guys have to get the cradle grants to spend something. But I'll give you my cradle grants here for you.
All right, guys. I like a little controversy.
So the headquarters, I said the sky for the cloud is Northern Virginia. Dominion is the energy provider for Northern Virginia, and they're clawing back every publicly traded and privately traded mission critical REIT and saying whatever power you ask for, if you're not utilizing it in the next 45 days, we're taking it back. We are 1,000% out of infrastructure. Okay, so to answer your question, you will see a change in this world. That there will be limitations to what you will see one day, just like the world in which when we only had minutes and we didn't use data.
Yeah.
Sadly, until we get with the program and start either limiting the amount of technology that you consumers can adopt on a daily basis, or we have to find an alternative mean for energy. And right now, we have slated for 45 gigawatts of renewables in the next 5 years. And like I said, 27 gigs of that alone is coming straight from natural gas. And the problem with solar and wind is you can't store it. Same with hydrogen, right? You can you can convert it into pneumonia if you want to transport it, but it doesn't pencil out. Technology, look, you gotta understand us, we're talking about technology. It iterates 10 times faster than humans, right? So it doesn't pencil out to have a flux capacitor if you cannot get it over to another part of the land, which is why Texas is where so much of AI will be built, because the Permian Basin is there. And there is so much natural gas there that we don't need utility providers to go build more substations. They're just not gonna do it, right? What's gonna happen is they're gonna go, hey, you wanna build a data center? Very cool. Why don't you build not only a power plant, like we built a data center for TikTok in Dublin. And there's only 2 grid providers who traditionally one on the wholesale, one on the resale side, so one parent company over the 2. And for us to give 100 megawatts to that data center, we had to go self-generate 150 megawatts of cogeneration, prime generation with renewable energy, meaning that the grid said, if you want 100 megs to support your cloud, no problem. You get your 100, but only if you give us 50. And we have the right to buy your substation out from you in the next 5 years if we want to, so I hope you built it in accordance with their standards, right? So there is a huge shortage of power, and there is a dichotomy between, like, I would tell you to go watch Nuclear Now by Oliver Stone. You don't have to like Oliver Stone, but there is a show on where he spends time with Greenpeace and the Sierra Club and all these groups that rallied against nuclear energy now realize that we are destroying ourselves with the way that we use energy today, and the only way to truly have a negative impact on the carbon footprint is to shift to nuclear energy. And from a commercial basis, there's a lot of overtones to it that people don't understand. But there's a reason why you've never heard of seeing a nuclear reactor submarine sitting on the bottom of the ocean.
And I think you're gonna see some, I'm gonna politely give you a contrarian, which is I've seen some technologies that are gonna be announced pretty soon, where we're doing crazy stuff, really crazy stuff, so.
You can make
right now,
some
for example,
the community still can't.
I was on the phone with Governor Abbott's phone the other day, literally, and they're about ready to write a law in Texas. This is, if you come here with a large data center, you better get some kind of exclusion because it ain't happening. It's literally going through the House right now.
No.
All right, so we're running down on time. Next fireside chat will be them Actually, honestly, guys, you did exactly what I hoped you would do. You bring things up that are absolutely critically important.
And we don't have to agree.
No.
I still respect you.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
You're allowed to be wrong all the time.
Once in a while. That's
It's
not
not
even
even
illegal.
illegal.
well, I really like this conversation, and I think everybody else does too, because this kind of signals what we don't know.
I don't want you to lock up power. There's some other hands that went up. I don't want to cheat anybody out of the opportunity if you want to throw another question at me. Or then maybe.
Oh, Anthony? Yeah, we got 5 minutes left, Anthony.
I just got something off topic, so I'm gonna break this up a little bit here. It's fascinating, and I love these guys as leaders. With that said, what characteristics do you look for when you're hiring people? What traits, characteristics do you look for?
No, you guys go. I'll follow.
Oh, now they're quiet.
Or I know how to answer, and that's fine.
So it's also.
Hey, Anthony, ask an easy question.
Experience is the
Yeah,
last
5
thing I look
minutes.
for.
Yeah, 34
Experience
minutes, right?
is as good as a banana, right? I mean,
Yeah, totally agree.
think about the way that you use technology today, how you did it a year ago, how you're gonna use it a year from now. Experience doesn't matter. I look for grit, I look for relentlessness, I look for selflessness, I look for people that wanna reinvent themselves, because this is an industry that is more vibrant, more kinetic than every other industry because of every other industry. The adoption of emerging technology from every vertical of industry, in some capacity, ends up in a data center. So we don't have the time to worry about experience. I look for people that have something inside of them that not only do they not need my help to get going, but they would not be stoppable if I tried. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I would say to that, it's, first of all, I like hire people that are smarter than I am, which someone said that earlier today, and I firmly believe that. Do they want to keep learning? Right, if people think they're done learning, or they think they know everything, and that comes often from people saying, I have this experience, I know everything, and I don't hire for that, right? And I want to, but then beyond that, for me, it's, are they open, do they have high integrity, or do I want to work with that person, right? Is it someone I want to have in my team? Like, those are the things I look for, and then you get into all kinds of technical stuff, blah, 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 blah. But like, those kinds of qualities for me surpass all that.
First thing I look for in everybody we interview is we run them through a series of programs where I can identify, or we can identify with our team, will this person be loyal to their subordinates? Number one.
How do you do that?
Well, we do a lot of scenario-based interviews. We get because at the end of the day, I think what I met with the officers that I modeled, around when I was growing up, were guys that were loyal to their troops, right? I had a good friend of mine, we were in the 7th ID. It was probably the best guy I ever saw, a guy named Brian Menace. Brian was the most loyal guy to his troops. And I used to watch him in awe, and I picked up that leadership style from him, which I will passionately defend those who work for me. Because what happens is when you're loyal to the guys, like especially in the military, you always get an E3 that comes up with a good idea. We call them good idea first, right? Bing, I got a good idea. And if you see a leader that discounts that, then you miss innovation. So for me, loyalty to your subordinates is the number one. I can take a guy who's not a nuclear scientist, who doesn't understand how to write a distributed inferencing algorithm, cooperative distributed inferencing. I don't care. For me, it's loyalty to your subordinates. That is what makes a team.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, how about a round of applause for